today I'm gonna do the Fallout 4 Nuka World DLC, and I'm gonna talk about every job I've ever had, because I think that'll make for an interesting video. I'm gonna kind of just talk over story stuff, so let's get started. So, my very first job starts at a church. That was dramatic. So my very first job starts at a church, where there was an event we had with stop sneaking. There was an event we had with a martial arts school. So the martial arts school came and did a demonstration, and my brother was like super into it, and ended up going to the school. So I ended up going to the school and started training there. I was about 15 years old. I'm so bullets, Bungie. They were running a summer camp that I ended up working as a counselor for. So, very first job, camp counselor at my karate place. While I was a camp counselor there, I was obviously also training, and I ended up being an assistant instructor. So they were training me how to teach other people. This isn't going to be terribly interesting. I'll be right back. So I was being trained as an assistant instructor, which basically meant I stood on the mat and helped the newer kids, while the like the head instructor, the main guy, taught the whole class. Do I have any healing items? I ended up becoming an actual instructor. I'm gonna skip this bit.
What happened to you?
Raiders.
Well, that wasn't very
Skip
nice.
it.
Killing an innocent man. You're one ruthless son of a bitch, aren't you?
Please stand clear of the door.
So I left the subtitles on, but I took off the voice volume, so I'm not gonna get interrupted while I'm talking. So I end up as a full martial arts instructor, and then my mom was actually super unhappy with the way that, because I should mention, she was working there too. She was running the aftercare program, and she was super unhappy with the way that the aftercare program was run, and so she ended up opening her own. So she ended up opening her own, and we hired an instructor, and then I ended up working as an instructor as well. Where's the last one? Oh boy. So I worked for my mom as a martial arts instructor and as a camp counselor for her business for about 6 years, I want to say 6 or 7 years, and then I ended up, I'm just kind of looking for traps. I ended up getting ready to join the military. Now that's a whole video, I already did that, so I'm not going to talk about it too much, but I'll just kind of summarize as can I shoot those down? Certainly can. So I'll just kind of summarize it as I worked for her at the same time while I trained to join the military, did the whole SEAL program thing, and then ended up going for that. Now, after I went, take some stuff. So after I went for that, I ended up in the program, failed the program, and then ended up, oh dear. Oh, that was easy. And then I ended up in a kind of a flux position, so Radix. Oh, this is bad. Oh, I hate this part. It's so stressful. Did I just come back the way that I Oh, I'm so lost now. Oh, jeez. So, I end up in a weird flux state where I had failed the program and I was still there. Just, there's probably a key. Let me just do this. Door's open. All right. So a time came where they had me meet with this guy whose job it was to reclassify us from the SEAL program to another job. I hate these monkeys. Hate them. Um, I'm taking my time on this. So there comes a time where I'm supposed to be my sneaking is so good. So I go to meet the reclass guy and I go with two other people. Now, the two other people I know for a fact have a lower ASVAB, which is like an aptitude test score. I know they have lower ASVABs than me. And so when we go to get this list, they print off 3 lists and they hand us these lists, and they're the lists of jobs that we're eligible for. And my list is like 4 things. And they hand the lists to the other 2 guys, and their lists are huge, and they have like 15 things on them. And so I go, what's going on here? Like, why do I have no qualifications when I know already we talked about it? I already knew I had higher scores than these guys. So I should have at least the same amount of qualifications that they did, right? So the guy catches an attitude with me, and he goes, I don't know if you're comfortable talking about your background in front of them. And I go, what background? And he goes, are you saying that it's okay to talk about it in front of them? And I said, what are you talking about? And so he asks them to leave the room eventually. And he says, he pulls up this like rap sheet, and it has arson, assault, um, torturing small animals, like all these things on it. And he goes, this disqualifies you from a lot. And I said, none of that is mine. I said the only waiver. He said that they were waivers for those, I don't know, crimes, I guess. And I said the only waiver I have is for childhood asthma. And he goes, well, I mean, I have what I have in front of me. And so I made him look me up in the system. And sure enough, he goes, oh, yeah, all I see is childhood asthma. So I guess the rest of that just got erased. Like he just did away with it. And let that be a lesson to you that you should challenge things, because he wasn't going to tell me any of that unless I push back on him. And once I pushed back on him, it turns out that he had this error in his system or whatever it was that was going to totally screw me over. So basically all I was going to be able to do was like heavy equipment operator until I did that. And then I knew almost nothing about any of the jobs that they were offering me. And I guess it's like, because some of them are hard to research, they're military jobs. And I didn't have a ton of time to look over them. So I had heard IS, which is intelligence. I'd heard intelligence was good. And so I saw that was on my list, and I was like, I'll take it. Like, just give me that. I'll take it. Watch me pick another lock. Whoa. That's a hell of a room. You have no idea how much time I just spent on that. Where the hell was I? So that's how I end up in Virginia Beach at intelligence school. Now I was originally just training as like an intelligence analyst, and it's like non-specific. And then we had to pick a specialty at some point. So the first, great. So the first part of Intel school was like basic, and they kind of trained you in a little bit of everything. I forgot I could do this. There we go. So the beginning of it is very basic, and it's like a lot of, you know, military stuff. I can't talk about all of it, but, you know, you learned about enemy capabilities and, you know, the kind of ships and aircraft and missiles and, you know, all that stuff that, that enemy countries have. You learned a little bit about what we have, but it's, the intel people don't actually know a ton about American capabilities because it's not really our job. Our job is to like assess threats, and I say our like I'm still doing it, but their job is to like assess threats and keep people aware of like what they might be up against. I was in the Navy, so it was like it was mostly aimed at people on ships, so we would exist on the ships. I'm inside. We would exist on the ships, and when a ship was coming into a new area, we would be responsible for putting together like a threat brief, and you know what all was there. And I'm gonna do this my way. And my way is this way. Did I not get him? There we go. So I ended up taking a specialty at some point. There was some really fun stuff from that. I'm gonna actually do another video, I think, on my whole Intel school experience. So I'll kind of skip over some of it for now. But basically I went through and I got the specialty of satellite imagery analysis. So my job was to take satellite imagery and look over it and find information in it that's important and useful. It's not as easy as it sounds like it is. In some ways it is, and in some ways it's not. And then I ended up taking orders to Miami for Southcom. So Southcom means I worked with like South American intelligence. So everything that I did had to do with South America, and through weird happenstance, I ended up working in that one command for a very long time. So basically my entire like 6 years. I gotta talk to the intercom. So for 6 years, I end up in satellite imagery analysis, which was a really interesting job. I can't talk too much about a lot of it, but you know, I was really good at it, and it was a lot of fun. I hated dealing with the people in the military a lot of the time. I didn't fit in well with a lot of that, but yeah, it was fun. When I got out of the military, I had like no direction whatsoever, and so I ended up working a bunch of like odd little jobs. I think my first job out of the military, I pushed carts for Home Depot, which was not fun. It was really hot, and I ended up getting called in one day to cover someone in the lumber department, and I did well enough there that they decided they wanted me in there all the time. So I kind of got hired to do the carts, and then I ended up in the lumber department instead, which was a better place to be. But still, like, it was really active. Like, I walked like 7 miles a day when I was doing that job. Am I close enough? And that's how you become overboss. So I ended up doing. It was pretty anticlimactic. So I pushed carts for Home Depot for a little while, and then I end up working at. It was a hurricane shutter repair place. I worked there for a little while. I didn't get along with the guy I worked for, and frankly, I wasn't like super good at it, so I ended up getting fired from there. And then I end up working at Starbucks, and then I have this regular who's like really cool, and he ends up basically recruiting me out of the drive-through. He pulled in one day and he goes, hey, what's going on? I was talking to him for a minute and got him his coffee, and he said a lot of new faces or something like that. And I said, yeah, they like to hire tons of people and then give us no hours. And he goes, well, why don't you come work for me? And I go, what do you do? And he goes, you like computers? And I said, well, I just built a computer, so I know a little bit about them. And he goes, okay. He's like, send me your resume. So I put together my resume, which is, as you know from this video now, pretty colorful. I end up moving from, like, he was intending me to go for like a hardware job, like doing installs and repairs and stuff, to a data analysis job. And that's what I do now. I was like, when it comes to like Intel analysis, that was a thing that I did for a long time. But now I'm doing data analysis, which is not the same. It's a lot of like Microsoft Excel formulas and just trying to bring out. Basically, you get this big data set, and you're like, well, here's all this info. Tell me something meaningful from it, right? So, like, I have, as an example, like call logs for all of the customer service calls that come into the company. And my job is figure out some performance indicators for who is answering the most calls or satisfying the most calls, or how many calls do they take a day, and how long are the calls on average, who's resolving people's things quicker, or who's taking the extra time to spend with the customers. So it's like a ton of like ambiguity about it. And basically every time I go, it's a huge learning experience. Like every time because it's not like something I'm trained to do. So let's do this. Let's make a save, and let's kill shit. So, that felt bad. I shouldn't have done that. So, basically I do the analysis now. Oh, you're invincible, aren't you? Where are all the raiders? These raiders are surprisingly permissive of me gunning them down. So anyway, just to summarize, martial arts instructor, military intelligence analyst, cart pusher, hurricane shutter repairman, barista, and data analyst. Now, I guess I should probably but mention what it is that I want to do next. And that is way up in the air. I can lean into what I'm doing now and kind of focus on like a data-driven career. But that's not something that I've ever really thought about doing, so I don't know if this is a bug, but they really seem okay with me just shooting everyone. So I can lean into it and I can do like a data-driven career and I can get a degree. I want to go back to school at some point. I've like started and stopped again like 3 times because the other thing I was going to do before I got this job was I was going to be a radiology technician, and then I ended up, oops. So anyway, I was going to be a radiology technician, and then I ended up into the data analysis thing, and I didn't have the time to go to that school. This guy right here. I didn't have the time to go to that school while I was, this is definitely a bug. So I didn't have the time to go to the school for that while I was doing the job that I'm doing now. So I'm pretty much at a stalemate. Like, I have no idea, you know, how long I can do what I'm doing, or, you know, what my future at that company is, and, you know, I'm sure there is one, but it's just, all really up in the air. But, you know, where I am right now is good for me, and, you know, I'll continue to learn as I go, and, you know, I'm not upset about it or anything like that. I just am always looking for what's next and trying to plan a couple steps ahead so I don't end up getting caught flat-footed. But I hope this has been an interesting video. I've tried to make the gameplay kind of interesting, and I think my job history is a little weird, so it's kind of fun to talk about. Maybe it's fun to hear about. But that is it until next time, so thank you for watching. You I will spare, Sierra.